started like any other afternoon. Officer Lila Hayes sat in the cruiser, window half down, the soft hum of summer settling over the town. Beside her, in the passenger seat, Thor sat still as a statue. A massive German shepherd with sharp eyes and a scar above his right brow. He looked like he belonged in a battlefield, not this sleepy rural town. Lila tried again. "You hungry, big guy?" she asked, tossing a small treat toward him. Thor didn't flinch, didn't move. The treat dropped by his paw. She sighed. It had been 2 weeks since they'd been paired. He was her first K9. And she was just another handler to him. The radio crackled suddenly, sharp and urgent. "Unit 4, we've got a missing child report. 8-year-old male. Last seen walking home from Ridge Elementary 3 hours ago." Lila snatched the mic. Unit 4 responding. She glanced at Thor, still, but his ears had perked. Something clicked in those deep brown eyes. They arrived fast. The boy's mother stood outside, trembling. "Max never misses," she said. "He always walks straight home. He wasn't feeling well today," said his stomach hurt. Lila knelt down, holding out the boy's backpack. Thor, seek. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then movement. Thor leaned in, nostrils flaring, eyes narrowing like a switch had flipped. He was a soldier again. He tugged hard on the leash, pulling Lila down the sidewalk, past the corner store, across the empty park. "Easy, buddy," she whispered, jogging to keep up. "We'll find him. Just don't lose it." The trail twisted through thick brush at the edge of the woods. Lila called dispatch. "We're heading north, into Timberline. Have units cover Old Mill Road as backup." Thor stopped, sniffed again, then barked once, loud and sharp, and veered left, deeper in. Branches scratched Lila's arms. Mosquitoes swarmed. Still she followed. "He'd better not be out here alone," she muttered. 30 minutes passed. Then something new. Thor slowed. His body dropped low, muscles tense. "What is it?" she asked. He gave a low growl and crept forward. Then silence. No birds. No wind. And then a small voice. Weak. "Help? Please." Lila froze. "Max." Thor bolted forward, crashing through the undergrowth. "Thor, wait!" she yelled, heart pounding. She pushed through, and there he was. Max lay curled beneath a fallen log, dirt-smudged and pale. His lips trembled. "My leg. I fell. Couldn't move." Lila dropped beside him, radioing in. "Found the child. Injured. Need medics on North Trail access now." Thor didn't bark. Didn't move. He just sat there, guarding Max like a statue. The boy reached out with a shaking hand. "Doggy, you found me." Thor leaned in gently, pressing his head into Max's chest. The boy smiled through tears. "You're warm." Lila wiped her eyes. "Yeah, he's got a good heart. Just hides it well." Thor didn't look at her, but for the first time his tail moved. Just a little. A slow, silent wag. As medics arrived and carried Max out, Lila and Thor stood in the shadows of the trees. "You did good, partner," she whispered, rubbing behind his ear. He turned his head slightly toward her. Then, like it meant nothing at all, he licked her hand. Just once. And in that moment, the distance between soldier and officer, dog and human, started to close. They weren't just paired anymore. They were beginning to become a team. Thor didn't slow down. His nose hovered inches from the ground, weaving left and right like a living compass. Lila jogged behind him, breathing hard, boots crunching on gravel. Her hand gripped tight around the leash. "He's not just tracking," she muttered between breaths. "He's driven." The streets blurred by, neighbors watching from porches, confused, worried. Then came the fields, dry and wide. Thor veered off the path and headed straight into the woods again. Lila glanced around. "Where are you going, Thor?" Branches whipped at her sleeves. Thor's pace never faltered. He knew something. She could feel it. This wasn't just scent anymore, this was instinct. After 10 more minutes, they broke through the tree line and came to a clearing. Lila slowed, heart thudding. Oh no! There it was. An old, leaning farmhouse. Boards hanging off. Shutters barely hanging. A place the town forgot. Thor growled low, then darted forward. "Hold up!" Lila called, but he was already there, circling the porch. That's when she saw it. "Thor, wait!" She stepped closer. Right there in the grass, Max's backpack. She knelt beside it. It looked like it had been dropped mid-run. The zipper was open. Inside, crushed papers, a juice box, one crumpled glove. Then off to the side more. A shoe. "Max!" Lila called, voice cracking. "Can you hear me?" Nothing. Just wind whistling through the broken panels. Thor barked, sharp and loud. He was at the back door, tail stiff, ears pinned. Lila rushed over. "What is it?" Thor didn't bark again. He just stared, frozen, like something had switched off inside him. "Thor," she said softly. He didn't move. Lila reached for her radio. "Dispatch, this is Officer Hayes. We've got signs of the missing child. Requesting immediate backup to the old Anders farm off Route 12. Static." She moved a few feet. "Dispatch, do you copy?" Still nothing. She checked her phone. No bars. "Seriously?" She looked at Thor. "We're on our own, for now." The back door creaked as she opened it. Thor didn't wait. He slipped in silently, his body low, tail unmoving. Inside was dark. Dust swirled in the air. Broken glass crunched under Lila's boots. "Max?" she called, her voice bouncing through the empty hall. A faint sound, something dragging across wood, echoed from upstairs. Lila glanced at Thor. He was already facing the staircase. His ears twitched. "You hear that too?" she whispered. He growled once, then climbed, step by step. Each board groaned under his weight. Upstairs, the hallway stretched like a tunnel. Light leaked through cracks. Thor sniffed one door, then the next. He paused outside the third. He scratched once, then sat. Lila's fingers hovered over her belt. No backup, no signal, just a dog. And a gut feeling. She reached for the doorknob and twisted. The room was empty. Dusty mattress, torn curtain. But then movement. A flash of red under the bed. Lila dropped to her knees. "Max!" No answer. She reached slowly and felt fingers. "Hey!" she said gently. "It's okay. I'm Lila. I'm here to help." The face peeked out, pale, eyes wide with fear. "I heard barking," Max whispered. "I got scared and ran. Then I couldn't find the road." "You did the right thing hiding," Lila said. "But we gotta get you out now, all right?" Thor stepped forward and pressed his head against Max's shoulder. Max smiled weakly. "He's big." "Yeah," Lila said, holding out her hand. "But he's got a soft side." Just as Max crawled out, a bang. From downstairs. Thor's head snapped toward the door. Lila froze. What was that? Another sound, footsteps. Slow, heavy. Someone else was here. Thor growled. Not low this time, deep and loud. Protective. Lila pulled Max behind her, hand on her holster. She whispered, "We're not alone anymore." And they weren't. The footsteps downstairs stopped. Silence returned. Lila waited, heart pounding in her throat, body frozen in place. Thor stood firm in front of Max, blocking him from whatever or whoever was in that house. Minutes passed like hours, but no more sounds came. Lila whispered, "We move. Now." She cradled Max's hand and guided him carefully down the creaking stairs. Thor stayed close, eyes darting, ready for anything. They reached the ground floor, but Thor didn't head for the door. He turned, toward the basement. "Really?" Lila muttered. Thor barked once sharp, then trotted toward the old wooden door under the stairs. Max clung to her leg. "Please don't leave me. You're staying right beside me, all right?" she promised. She pulled the door open slowly. The air hit her like ice. The basement smelled like mold and metal. One step, then another. Thor went ahead, his paws silent on the wood. The light bulb at the bottom flickered weakly, barely enough to see. It was colder here, much colder. Lila's voice shook. "Why would he come down here?" Thor sniffed the floor, then the walls. Then he stopped. A large metal freezer sat in the far corner. Old, rusted. Thor approached it slowly, his ears pinned back. He sniffed, then growled long and deep. Lila's hand trembled as she reached for the latch. "Please," she whispered. "Let this be something else." She pulled. The lid groaned open. Cold air burst out. She stared. Wrapped in a blue blanket, small and still, was Max. Another Max. Her breath caught. No, 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 no. She knelt fast, heart racing. Pressed 2 fingers to his neck. No pulse. His skin was pale. Lips blue. Eyes shut. Thor whined beside her. Soft. Broken. She touched the boy's face gently. He's gone. Then her head turned slowly. To Max. The one clinging to her side. Still breathing. Still alive. What? Her voice cracked. She looked back at the body in the freezer. It looked like Max's same face. Same hair. Same size. She turned to the boy beside her. "Max. What's your last name?" He looked confused. "I'm not supposed to say. That's what he told me." "Who?" Max didn't answer, just shook his head and backed away. Lila's radio crackled suddenly. "Unit 4. Do you copy?" She jumped, grabbing it fast. "This is Hayes. I need units to the farmhouse now. We have a body possible abduction case. And a child in need of immediate ID and care. ETA 4 minutes. Hold tight." She dropped the lid on the freezer gently and stood. Thor didn't move. He just stared at the boy. Lila turned to him. "Is your name Max?" The boy's eyes welled up. He whispered, "I don't know." Lila felt her stomach twist. She crouched to meet him at eye level. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. But I need you to tell me, who brought you here?" He hesitated. Then, "He said he was my new dad." A shiver ran down Lila's spine. "Where is he now?" she asked. The boy turned his head slowly toward the stairs. "He was upstairs. He said if I left, he'd make me go back in the box." Thor stepped in front of them both, tail stiff. Then another sound. The front door creaked. Boots on wood. Someone had just come back inside. "No, no, no." Lila dropped to her knees beside the open freezer, her voice shattering the silence. "Max, come on. Baby, please wake up." Her hands shook as she tried to lift the boy's limp body, unwrapping the cold blanket, searching for something. Anything. A pulse, warmth. A sign he was still there. But he wasn't. Thor let out a soft, broken whine and stepped forward, pressing his snout gently against Max's cheek. Once, twice. He waited. Nothing. Then he laid down beside him. Quiet. Still. Lila's chest heaved. "We were right here," she whispered. "We were so close." The sound of sirens broke through the air, growing louder by the second. Red and blue lights danced against the basement walls. Heavy boots pounded down the stairs. "Officer, are you okay?" A paramedic shouted. Lila didn't answer. She just stepped back, eyes glassy, as they moved in. Thor stood between her and the body until she whispered, "It's okay. Let them." The paramedics surrounded the freezer. One leaned in, checking vitals. Another took notes. Finally, one of them looked up. His face said it all. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "He's gone." Lila turned away, covering her face with her hands. I had him. I had him." They led her outside, away from the basement, away from the cold and the silence. She collapsed onto the grass in the yard, the afternoon sun burning down as if mocking the chill inside her. Thor followed, never leaving her side. He didn't sit. He didn't pace. He just stood there right next to her, watching. "I thought we saved him," Lila whispered. "He looked just like Max, same eyes, same hair. But it wasn't him." A paramedic approached gently. "The boy you brought out, the one still alive, he's in the ambulance now. We're checking him out. But he's safe. You saved him." Lila didn't look up. "He doesn't even know who he is," she said. "And the real Max was right there the whole time. I just didn't know." Thor sat down slowly beside her. He rested his head on her knee, nudging her gently. She looked at him, tears running down her face. "I've never cried in front of a partner before," she said with a sad smile. Thor didn't blink, didn't move, just stayed. More units pulled in. Yellow tape went up. The farmhouse was now a crime scene. But in the middle of all the movement, Lila and Thor stayed in that patch of grass. Quiet. After a while, the officer in charge approached her. "We found ID on the body. It is Max Taylor," he said. He'd been missing almost 2 days before anyone noticed. The man who took him. We believe he replaced him with the other boy. Lila wiped her face, trying to steady her voice. "So the kid in the ambulance. Likely another victim. Taken young. Trained to act like Max, maybe even brainwashed. We'll get answers soon." Lila stood slowly. Her legs felt heavy. She looked back at the house. "How do you even replace a child like that?" The officer shook his head. "Some people don't see kids as human. Just tools." Thor growled softly, low and deep. Lila reached down and ran her hand along his back. "You knew something was wrong. You always know." Thor didn't wag his tail, didn't look proud. He just leaned into her hand. "He saw Max before I did," she whispered. "He felt it." A medic waved from the ambulance. "Officer Hayes? The boy's asking for you." She looked at Thor. "Come on, partner. Let's go meet the boy we did save." And this time, Thor led her slowly. Not with urgency, not with power, but with something gentler, like grief and quiet strength. The town didn't sleep that night. By morning, Max's name was everywhere: radio, news alerts, front pages. The headlines read, "Local boy found dead after abduction horror." His school tied yellow ribbons around every tree. People left stuffed animals and candles outside his family's home. At the hospital, Max's mother collapsed when they gave her the news. No, that's not my son. He's just lost again," she cried, dropping to her knees on the curb, arms reaching for something that wasn't there. Even the mayor showed up. Cameras flashed. "This was a senseless tragedy," he said stiffly, "and we are committed to justice." But Lila barely heard him. She stood across the lot with Thor beside her, his leash loose in her hand. She hadn't slept. Not really. Not since the moment they left that basement. And Thor, he hadn't rested at all. At home, he refused to lay down. He paced the apartment, circling the couch, sniffing the corners, staring out the windows like he was waiting for something. Or someone. Lila sat on the floor in sweatpants, a blanket over her shoulders, coffee gone cold beside her. "Thor," she called softly. He didn't come, just stood at the front door, tail stiff, growling low at the night wind seeping in through the cracks. It had been hours, and he hadn't made a sound until now. She stood and crossed the room, crouching beside him. "What is it, huh? Wind bothering you?" But his eyes weren't on the trees. They were focused, alert, like he was waiting for someone to return. Lila's heart dropped. "You think we missed something, don't you?" Thor turned his head slightly, just enough. It wasn't over. She looked out the peephole. Nothing. Streetlights. Empty sidewalks. But Thor didn't stop pacing. Back and forth. Back and forth. He sniffed the edges of the doorframe, the air near the floor. Then he sat, perfectly still, eyes locked on the hallway. Lila whispered, "There was someone else in that house." Thor gave a soft growl. A confirmation. "And they're not done." She grabbed her phone, pulled up the case files again. She hadn't been able to stop going over them. The boy in the ambulance, he still hadn't spoken his name. No matches in the missing children's database yet. And the man who took Max vanished. No fingerprints in the farmhouse. No clear signs of escape. Just silence. It didn't add up. Why take 2 boys? Why train one to replace the other? Lila whispered aloud, mostly to herself. What if Max was never the first? What if he was just next in line? Thor whined quietly and walked to the window. Outside, a car drove by slow, headlights off. Lila stepped beside him. "Still think this was just a tragedy, boy?" she asked. Or are we staring at a bigger storm? Thor didn't move, didn't blink. She watched the dark street below, a weight settling in her chest. Something was coming, and Thor already knew it. The morning air was thick with silence as Lila pulled up to the farmhouse again. The yellow tape still fluttered across the porch. Deputies were gone. Forensics had already combed through, but something kept tugging at him. Thor jumped out before the engine stopped. His nose hit the ground immediately, but he didn't go toward the house. Not toward the freezer. "Where you going, partner?" Lila asked, trailing behind him. Thor circled the side of the house, toward the woods that curled behind it like dark fingers. "Nothing's back there but trees," she muttered. But Thor didn't pause. His pace quickened, tail stiff, nose locked on something invisible. Then, about 20 yards in, he stopped. He sniffed the earth once, twice, then began to dig. Fast, desperate. Lila's pulse jumped. "Thor? What is it?" She knelt beside him, helping move the soft soil. Her hands hit something hard. Wood. She brushed it off. An old hatch door, sunken deep and nailed shut. Lila grabbed her multi-tool and pried at the edges. Creaked open with a groan, stale air pouring out. A ladder disappeared into darkness. Thor didn't wait. He dropped down without hesitation. "Seriously," Lila muttered, grabbing her flashlight. "You're fearless, you know that?" She climbed down after him, boots landing on packed dirt. Her light cut through the black, revealing a cramped crawl space. No bigger than a bedroom, but worse than anything she'd seen inside the house. A stained mattress, rusted handcuffs bolted to the wall, empty food wrappers, a single light bulb dangling, long since burned out. Lila's stomach twisted. Thor growled and moved toward the far wall. There boxes. Inside them photographs. Dozens. Lila dropped to her knees and opened the first one. Max. In the woods. Max. Asleep. Max crying in a cage. She fumbled for another photo. It wasn't Max. A different boy. Brown hair. Around the same age. Then another, this one, a girl. Younger. Each photo worse than the last. Some were labeled. Dates. Numbers. Names. Others weren't. Lila swallowed hard. This wasn't random. Her voice cracked. She stood slowly, staring at the room, the files, the cage disguised as shelter. This was a pattern. Thor whined low. His head dropped. Even he looked disturbed. Lila backed out, her hands trembling, and climbed up into daylight like it was salvation. She gasped the moment the air hit her face. Not because of the chill, because now, she understood. This hadn't been about Max. Not just Max. This was bigger. The man who took him, he'd done this before. Maybe still was. Thor emerged seconds later, his face dirty, eyes sharp. Lila looked down at him. "He's still out there, isn't he?" Thor didn't growl. He just stared into the woods. Like he knew. Like he was waiting. Back at the station, Lila didn't speak. Not on the drive. Not when she handed over the evidence. Not even when officers tried to ask questions. She just sat there, in the corner of the forensics room, the bag of photos in her lap. Thor lay at her feet, eyes closed but alert, like he was listening to every breath she took. She pulled out one photo. The boy looked just like Max. Same soft eyes, same uneven bangs. But there was something different, too. A date scribbled on the corner. 3 years ago. She stared at it for what felt like hours. "It's not him," she said quietly. "But it could have been." One of the techs approached, holding a folder. "We ran the prints. Also did a quick DNA comparison on the hair samples from the crawl space." "Lila." She looked up slowly. "There were at least 4 different kids," he said. "All boys. All around 8 or 9. Similar features. We're still trying to ID them all. But this wasn't about one child." Lila swallowed hard, her throat dry. "So Max was one of many." She looked down at Thor. He opened his eyes and held her gaze. "We thought we were chasing one case," she whispered. "But Thor, he was chasing a monster." She ran her hand through his fur. "You knew. You felt it. That's why you didn't stop." Thor blinked slowly, then rested his head on her foot. The tech continued. There's more. We ran some of the timestamps through satellite and street footage. Some of those photos line up with missing kids from other counties. This guy didn't just hunt here. He traveled. Lila leaned back in the chair, staring at the ceiling. How long has this been going on? No way to tell yet. Years, maybe. She looked at the whiteboard on the far wall. Still showing Max's name, still listing times, locations, witnesses. But now, she knew that board was too small. They weren't dealing with a single crime. They were inside a web. She grabbed her coat. Come on, Thor. We're not done. As they stepped outside, the sun was setting again, just like it had the day they found Max. But this time, Lila felt something else. A hunt. And Thor was already scanning the wind. The photo had been buried at the bottom of the box, half torn and stained. But the background caught Lila's eye. A chipped yellow house with ivy crawling up one side and a crooked fence out front. She showed it to Thor. Recognize it? He sniffed the image, then let out a low grunt. So they went. The house stood at the very edge of town, nearly forgotten, just before the land turned into open farmland. Faded paint, broken shutters, no car in the drive. But Thor bristled the moment they pulled up. His ears pinned, tail straight. He let out a low, guttural growl from the back seat. Easy, boy, Lila whispered, unclipping his harness. Let's see what's got your fur up. They moved slowly. Lila checked the door unlocked. Inside was empty. Not just quiet, empty. Like someone had wiped it clean in a hurry. No furniture. No pictures. No noise. She stepped through the hallway, hand resting near her holster. Thor stayed tight at her side, nose twitching at every doorframe. The kitchen was spotless. Too spotless. Counters scrubbed. Floor mopped. No dust. No prints. Thor sniffed near the sink, then turned toward the hallway, his body tense. Basement, Lila muttered. Of course. She found the door just past the pantry. When she opened it, the cold air hit her instantly. She clicked on her flashlight. All right, let's see what's down there. The steps creaked beneath their weight. The smell hit her halfway down. Bleach. Strong. Too strong. Thor stopped on the third-to-last step. His hackles rose. His lips curled back, a low bark rattling from his throat. What is it? Lila whispered. He didn't answer, just stalked forward and locked eyes on the far corner. A door. Closet size. Paint peeling from the handle. Thor lunged forward and began barking wildly, claws scraping at the wood. Lila's heart jumped. She rushed forward and yanked the door open. Inside, a small pile of clothes. A torn child's shirt, covered in dust. And next to it, a name tag. Benji. Her fingers closed around it slowly. Another boy, she said under her breath. Another name. Thor sniffed the shirt and gave a soft whine. She pulled out her radio. Dispatch, this is Officer Hayes. I need backup at 411 Maple Edge Road. Abandoned property, possible connection to our previous case. Evidence recovered, child's clothing. Name tag. Name reads, Benji. There was a pause. Then copy that, Unit 4. Units en route. She sat down hard on the basement floor. Thor lowered himself beside her, breathing slow, eyes still fixed on that tiny pile of cloth like it meant everything. Lila looked down at the name tag in her hand. Every place we go, it's the same, she whispered. Cleaned up, covered, but not gone. Not gone enough for you to miss it. Thor blinked, slow and steady. Lila stared into the shadows. How many more are there, boy? How many kids never made it home? No answer, just silence. And that same heavy truth pressing down on both of them. This wasn't over. Not even close. The call came just after sunrise. Lila was pouring food into Thor's bowl when dispatch buzzed through. Neighbor came forward with a statement about the yellow house. Says she saw someone. Might be important. 15 minutes later, Lila stood outside the fence line with Mrs. Edna Langley, a retired schoolteacher with shaking hands and thick glasses. She pointed across the road, her voice barely above a whisper. He was tall, wore this dark hood. Always had a cooler with him. The big kind, like you'd take to a picnic. But he wasn't friendly. Never talked. Never waved. Just stared. Stared. Lila asked. From the porch. From the woods. From his car. Didn't matter where. He stared like he knew something. Lila jotted it down, but her stomach was already turning. You ever get a name? Nope. Never saw him with anyone. But that cooler, she paused, gave me a bad feeling. Lila returned to the property. Crime scene techs were bagging items for evidence. One of them approached her with a small zip bag. Inside, a kid's glove, tiny, blue, dirt-smudged. Found near the back fence line, the tech said. Could be from Benji. Could be from another. Lila crouched beside Thor. You ready? She opened the bag and let him sniff. Thor froze. Ears back. Eyes narrowed. Then he bolted. Thor! Lila called, already sprinting after him. They cut through brush, across the back fields, down a dried creek bed. Thor didn't slow, not once. Hours passed. The sun climbed high. Lila's lungs burned, legs aching. But Thor pressed on. He led them deeper into the woods, where trails vanished and silence crept in. Finally, he stopped. An old trailer sat crooked in a clearing. Rusted. Door half open. Lila approached carefully, gun drawn. Thor, stay. But he didn't. He followed close, as if needing to see what was inside. She pushed the door slowly. The stench hit first, rot, mold, something metallic. Inside was cluttered chaos. Ripped cushions, chains, a single mattress on the floor, and on the small table, a journal. Lila picked it up with gloved hands. The cover was cracked, pages warped. She opened it. The handwriting was neat, precise. Day 1, they cry. Loud, sharp. Always the same sound. Day 2, they ask for parents. They bargain. It's exhausting. Day 3, they don't scream anymore. Lila dropped the book and staggered back. She barely made it outside before vomiting into the weeds. Thor stood by the door, whimpering, tail low and trembling. He wouldn't go in. Couldn't. Lila wiped her mouth, staring at the trailer with red, wet eyes. This isn't just sick, she whispered. It's evil. She sat beside Thor, who curled up beside her, still shaking. They'd chased monsters before, but this time they'd found one. The next morning, Thor wouldn't sit still. He circled the front door, whining, scratching at the doormat like something was calling him. Lila grabbed her vest. You smell something again, don't you? She didn't wait for an answer. They were already moving. He led her back into the forest, beyond the trailer, past the creek bed, through miles of thick trees and silence. Lila stayed close, ducking under branches, pushing through brush. The deeper they went, the colder it felt, like the sun refused to touch this place. After nearly 2 hours, Thor stopped. One paw lifted, ears stiff, body frozen. Lila followed his eyes, rustling, then breathing, shallow, panicked. Close. Lila whispered. Hello? It's okay. We're here to help. A flash of movement, just beyond the tree line. Then out stepped a boy. Thin, filthy, barefoot. His shirt was torn, his knees scraped raw. His eyes went wide at the sight of Thor and Lila. No, don't take me back, he screamed, stumbling backward. Don't freeze me. Lila froze. Hey, it's okay. You're safe now. I promise. But the boy didn't believe her. He collapsed to his knees, hands over his head. Please. I did what he said. I stayed quiet. I didn't scream after 3 days. Don't put me back in the box. Lila's heart split. She dropped to the ground, voice soft. What's your name? The boy looked up slowly. Sam. Thor took a cautious step forward and sat. Not a growl. Not a bark. Just stillness. Lila held her hand out, palm open. Sam. I'm Officer Hayes. This is Thor. We've been looking for you. Tears spilled down Sam's cheeks. I ran. He left the door open. He was taking another boy. I heard them crying. So I ran. Lila's voice trembled. You escaped. Sam nodded slowly. I know everything. Where he goes. What he does. I saw all of it. Thor leaned in gently and rested his head beside Sam's leg. And for the first time, the boy didn't pull away. He whispered, "Can I tell you the truth now?" Lila reached for her radio, voice barely steady. "Dispatch, this is Officer Hayes. We have a live victim. His name is Sam. He escaped. And he knows everything." The hospital room was small, but it was the safest place Sam had known in years. He sat curled up in the corner of the bed, for in his arm, blanket around his shoulders, one hand buried deep in Thor's thick fur. Lila sat nearby, watching them in silence. She hadn't tried to separate them, because Thor wouldn't move, not to eat, not to rest, not even when the doctors came in. He stayed, and Sam clung to him like a lifeline. "He smells safe," the boy whispered, eyes barely open. "Like outside. Not like him." Lila leaned forward gently. "Sam, can you tell me what happened? Just what you remember. Take your time." Sam nodded slowly. His lips were cracked. His voice was no louder than a breath. "He brought me in a truck. A big one. Said we were going somewhere fun." Lila's throat tightened. "But it wasn't fun. It was dark. Cold. He gave me juice and then, I don't remember a lot." He reached for Thor again, his fingers trembling. Thor laid his head across Sam's lap, still as stone. "When I woke up," Sam continued, "I was in the cold box. He said it was my space. Said I had to be quiet. And that if I screamed." His voice broke. He looked down. Lila leaned closer. "You can say it." Sam swallowed. He said, "If you scream, you don't wake up." Silence. Lila blinked fast. How many times did he say that? Every day. He took a shaky breath. He had a routine. Lights on at the same time. Small food. Always a needle. I never saw another kid. But I heard them. At night. Crying. One stopped crying and didn't make noise again. Lila's hands clenched. "He kept a notebook," Sam whispered. "He wrote in it after he looked at us. Said he was recording changes." Thor whimpered softly, pressing closer to the boy. Sam leaned forward and rested his face against the dog's neck. "You saved me," he whispered. "You heard me. In the woods." Lila wiped a tear from her cheek. "You're safe now, Sam," she said. "I swear. We'll never let him hurt anyone else." Sam didn't answer. He just held on to Thor, eyes finally beginning to close. And for the first time in days, he slept. The call came just before midnight. A traffic cam on the county line pinged a match, blurry, but close enough. A hooded man driving a gray pickup, a cooler in the back. Lila didn't wait for backup. Thor leapt into the back seat before she even opened the door fully. His body tense, eyes locked on the road ahead like he already knew where they were going. Rain lashed the windshield as they sped out of town. The storm had turned the backroads to slush and mud. Wipers couldn't keep up. Visibility was a nightmare. But none of it mattered. Not now. Lila's knuckles were white on the wheel. "He's running. That means he knows we found Sam." Thor growled low, pressed against the door, pacing in the cramped space. "You ready, partner?" she asked, glancing in the mirror. Thor locked eyes with her. That was all she needed. They followed the tracking signal, pinged from the truck's stolen plate, until it vanished off the main road near a crumbling service path. "Where are you taking us, creep?" Lila muttered, turning in carefully. Then headlights reflected off metal. The truck, abandoned outside an old barn, half collapsed, swallowed in overgrowth. She stepped out, weapon drawn. Thor waited for her nod, then bolted. Inside the barn, shadows stretched long across rotting hay. And then movement. The suspect took off through the back, sprinting into the downpour. "Stop!" Lila shouted. "Hands where I can see them." But he ran harder, boots slipping in the mud. Then Thor's leash snapped free. The German shepherd exploded forward like a bullet. Lila followed, breath catching as she watched the figure ahead stumble. Mid-stride, Thor launched. He hit the man square in the back, sending him crashing face first into the soaked ground. The man screamed, but Thor didn't bite. He stood over him, silent, motionless, just watching, growling low, waiting. Lila caught up seconds later, gun still raised. "Don't move," she barked. The man didn't. He turned just enough to see Thor's bared teeth inches from his face. "I wasn't done yet," he spat. "There are more." Lila kicked the weapon away from his belt and cuffed him, heart racing. Thor backed up, eyes never leaving the man. And in that moment, the storm didn't matter. The mud didn't matter. All that mattered was that it was over, or so they thought. The courthouse was packed. News vans lined the street. People stood shoulder to shoulder behind barricades, umbrellas out, murmurs low. Inside, every seat was filled. The man in cuffs, Marcus Bell, kept his eyes down as deputies walked him through the aisle. He didn't look at anyone, not the crowd, not the photos on display, but Lila looked straight at him. And Thor, lying beside her chair, let out a soft, low growl. "Let him hear you," she whispered. The prosecutor opened the file and began reading names. Photos flashed across the screen. Max Benji, Caleb, Deshaun. Kids whose names had once been just flyers on telephone poles. Kids no one connected until now. In the front row, Max's mother shook silently. Her hands trembled. When Max's school photo appeared, she broke. "I should have picked him up that day," she whispered. "I should have known something was wrong." Lila reached over gently. "You couldn't have known." "But Thor did," she said through tears. "Thor knew." Then came the testimony. Sam took the stand. His shirt was too big, his shoes barely tied. But he walked with Thor's leash in his hand, gripping it like armor. He sat down slowly, eyes darting to Marcus for a brief second, then away. "Do you understand what it means to tell the truth today?" the judge asked gently. Sam nodded. The prosecutor leaned forward. "Can you tell us what Marcus Bell did to you?" Sam's fingers tightened on the leash. Thor stood beside the witness chair, watching, steady. "He took me in his car," Sam said softly. "He gave me candy. He said my mom told him to get me, but she didn't." His voice wavered. "He put me in a freezer, like the others. It was cold. It hurt." The courtroom was silent. "He told me, if I screamed, I wouldn't wake up." A juror wiped her eyes. "And how did you get away?" Sam's eyes flicked to Thor. "I ran when he left the trailer. I was scared. I didn't know where to go. But I heard barking." He smiled faintly. And then Thor came. He looked at the judge. He was the first one who listened. Lila blinked hard, willing herself not to cry. When court recessed, people stood to applaud as Sam stepped down. But it didn't feel like victory. Outside, reporters swarmed. "The town wants justice," one said. "Do you believe this is it?" Lila looked toward the sky, then at Thor. She spoke quietly, almost to herself. "It's not justice," she said. "It's just truth." She turned to walk away, hand resting on Thor's back. "Too late for Max," she whispered. "But not for the others." And Thor walked beside her, steady, silent, still listening. The day Thor retired, the whole precinct stood still. There were no speeches, no fanfare, just quiet nods, teary eyes, a deep respect only earned through pain. He'd done more than find a trail. He'd found the truth, again and again, even when it hurt. Lila knelt in front of him, unbuckling his vest for the last time. "You earned this, partner," she whispered. "Every minute of it." Thor leaned into her chest, then stepped back. Free. No commands. No leash. Just trust. Later that week, Sam left the hospital. His new family waited with open arms and trembling hearts. He hugged Lila so hard her ribs ached. Then he dropped to his knees and held Thor like he couldn't let go. "You'll come visit?" he asked. "Anytime you call," Lila promised. "Promise." Thor pressed his head gently against the boy's side. That was his promise. At the station, things slowly moved forward. New cases, new calls, but something changed. Near Thor's old kennel, they mounted a small wooden plaque. Lila saw it one morning and stopped. It read, "For Max, who was found too late, and Thor, who never stopped looking." She didn't cry. Not this time. She just whispered, "Thank you," and kept walking. But she knew there was still one place left to go. One place she hadn't returned. Not until now. The old farmhouse was still boarded up. Empty. Silent. Lila stepped out of the car with Thor at her side. Older now, but just as steady. She walked slowly to the fence, pulled a collar from her coat pocket. Brown leather. Max's name stitched in faded blue thread. She looped it through the chain link and tied it tight. "There," she whispered, "where someone can see it." The wind rustled the trees. Thor sat beside her, watching the field beyond the gate. Lila knelt beside him. "We didn't save him," she said, "but we found him." She closed her eyes. "And we told his story." Thor leaned into her one last time. No bark. No sound. Just presence. And peace. "And we told his story. If this story moved you, share it. So Max is never forgotten, and Thor's courage lives on.